Hi guys, it's Emily Rhodes in South Central Kansas. I'm currently sharing my flow chart for a company I work for called the Language Project. You might notice that it looks a little crazy and little not very well connected. That is because the Language Project is modeled after a network organizational structure. And even when I was making it, I found myself defaulting to a more traditional functional hierarchy structure when a network structure is more open and allows for internal and external connections between different organizations. Um, so the reason that the Language Project does have a network organizational structure is because we are a third-party language instruction company. While we do hire our own teachers, TLP hires, trains, does professional development, and is the pay source for employees. TLP employees don't go to a TLP building. We are contracted by public and private schools or parents that want to host private clubs. So while the TLP does create their own research-based curriculum here by our Director of Curriculum and Training, we offer our teachers and our curriculum to contracting schools or parents. So that's what makes us a network. We outsource the logistical planning and customer acquisition responsibilities to these schools. In that way, while you are employed and paid by the Language Project, employees do have to have a badge for the district or the specific school they're working for. And they are subject to that district's policies, their hours, rules for contacting parents and students. Different schools have rules for if we're allowed to give homework on grades, if we have to hold parent-teacher conferences, if we have to attend in-service for that school. So it's almost like you're working for two companies. You're paid and trained by the Language Project, but you work for and follow most of the rules of your hiring school. So internally, TLP employees are supported by regional or state directors. So while we have our main core here of our CEO, our training and curriculum director in our schools, most of the time employees are going to answer to their regional or state directors. We have Missouri, Maryland, Kansas, and Iowa, Nebraska. I fall under the Kansas side here. And even further distinction in this network is we have teachers that go to schools and they'll be in the school building, or we have after school club instructors. We've been remote for, let's say, a full year, and then kind of hybrid for about a year and a half now. The after school instructors do go to a school building to teach, but because it's not during club or during school hours, you're more likely to contact your regional or state director than you are the actual school you're working for. We even have separate payroll for the club instructors and those that have private clubs with families rather than schools. Let's see. So most of the time you can go straight to this inner circle if you have questions on classroom management, or you need tips for how to deliver curriculum to certain students. You can go straight to our director of curriculum and training. Because this is a network and not a hierarchy, you don't necessarily have to go through a secretary and set an appointment to contact someone in the inner circle. Most levels are connected with these dotted lines. You can contact anyone in the network, other instructors in your district or state, or you can go to a completely other one. I work a lot with the director in Maryland, even though I teach classes here in Kansas. Usually the state or district level managers will get in contact if you have problems with parents and you're not directly related to a school. They might step in for you because you're more of just the teacher in the situation. Let's see. One really cool part that I appreciate about the network structure is whenever we have training sessions with Lisa, Most of the time it's on Zoom, and we have all TLP instructors from all the different states and districts come together, and she'll set a topic and kind of guide us to get us started. But most of the meeting is just instructors talking about their experiences with their schools and with their students and with the curriculum. So it feels more, you're not going top down with power and responsibilities. It feels more democratic and more of an even playing field. Um, that we're not just listening to someone above us because their title gives them the idea that they have more knowledge. The company recognizes that the instructors are in the classroom with the students, and they're the ones that are adapting the curriculum for remote or hybrid. And so they're relying on our expertise and our actual experience in the classroom to teach each other. I've been able to talk to the CEO directly. You don't have to go through a certain chain of command to talk to someone. Let's see, network organizational structures are also defined as more flat or decentralized. So even though we have a core here with the CEO and Lisa and the contracting parents in schools, yes, they're the ones that pay us, but they're not necessarily the first ones you're going to talk to if you have a problem. You can refer to pretty much any level in the network. So there are several benefits to a network organizational structure. It's much more flexible. It's easier to get contact and support because if someone can't answer you right away, you can just email another instructor. Um, if you don't have time to wait for someone to answer you in the language project, you can go straight to the school. The company provides the basic materials and the schools provide the basic rules, but other than that, teachers are allowed to be creative and put their own spin on lessons and really connect with the kids. We're constantly learning from colleagues because of the open communication. Everyone shares ideas, and because we don't own the materials, it's less likely that a teacher will be hesitant to share something that they created. There's more variety. You may work for several different schools in a district, or you might go to a private Catholic school 3 days a week and to a public school 2 days a week. There's not really any specialized roles, and so instructors can teach any of the grades or language ability levels that the TLP offers. The structure also saves the company itself money because they don't have to pay for a building and facilities to hold these classes. That part is on the hiring schools. Um, Following that thought, the TLP doesn't really have to advertise as broadly because once they get certain schools or districts set in, the schools are the ones providing students. So instead of trying to find 30 different families with students to enroll, we find one school and automatically have 50 to 100 students. There are some cons to the organizational network structure. It is confusing. It can be confusing to know who's the best person to contact in a certain situation. Because there's not a lot of specialization. Someone might indirectly and informally have a role of handling the discipline or handling if we're changing the curriculum to a remote way, and you might contact the wrong person because it's not as formal. You're also employed by 2 different organizations, and so it can be confusing to decide whose rules am I supposed to follow in this situation? How am I supposed to make a decision that will satisfy both the language project and the school that's hiring me? Another con is you're constantly moving around. You might be in 3 different school buildings in a week. During semesters, you might switch districts. If you're online and you live in Kansas, you might be instructing kids in Iowa or Nebraska. So it can be also confusing if you're someone that likes rigid structure because things will be changing and flowing all the time. Also, culture and expectations. If you do private lessons or one for a school that may have a different set of beliefs, which could be between a Catholic private school or a public district. So you have to be flexible. And the final con I'll touch on is that if one company decides to go in a different direction or they get a little bit bigger, they might not have as equal partnership as they did before. And if the network gets too stretched out, and too many people are involved, or say the language project wanted to introduce language, say they wanted to start teaching Japanese and the schools don't have a market for that, then that might not be a very equal or democratic relationship at that point. So let's see. Finally, these are the sources that I use to learn more about network organizational structure. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them on Blackboard. And thank you very much.